So I use this show and tell method, so I don't have written text, and this is a project that I'm working currently right now on. But anyway, I was, and thank you for former speakers, because what relates to Estonian theatre history, a lot of similarities of Slovak theatre, and yesterday my colleague Katariina Tompsa already gave an overview of Estonian theatre field currently. So basically we could say that everything is pretty well compared to many other neighboring countries. And so I think that the panel I belong to is very good, because you can hear three quite pessimistic papers one after another. So I was really inspired by the call for papers for this conference, and I really started to think what unites us and what separates us, people from the theatre makers in Eastern Central Europe. And I came up with two things that I think that is essential. First is language or languages. Many countries use Slavic languages, unfortunately not Baltic countries. So we don't share this common trait with you. But I think that the notion of Eastern and Central Europe is definitely formed by different wars. And that's why I was wanting to talk about how the wars have molded our identity, and how the recent war or the full-scale invasion of Russia to Ukraine has also raised lots of important questions in Estonia. There are three wars that have really been influential in Estonian history. First of them is Estonian War of Independence that took place right after the First World War. And what is significant in all these three wars is the feeling of in-betweenness. Also, during the Estonian Independence War, Estonian national body who claimed for autonomy in Tsarist Russia, or from Tsarist Russia, was in the end of the, or in the last phases of the First World War, occupied by Germany, and at the same time other parts of Estonia by the Tsarist or Soviet regimes. So basically Estonian nationalists were fighting at the same time both against Germany and against socialists or the new Soviet country. And I think that the event is important in our part of the world, because many countries gained their independence after the World War. Also, Estonia became independent or declared itself independent in 1918 and was independent country between the world wars. So the second influential event that also created this great division between East and West was, of course, World War II. And again, Estonians found themselves in between. Estonia was first occupied by the Soviet Union, then by Nazi Germany, and then by Soviet Union again. And what concerns theatre, then of course there was very few production that depicted the independence war. Because Estonia was independent only for 20 years, and already in the 30s, actually, local Germans and also the embassy of Germany was very careful in the 30s about critical remarks towards Germans, local Germans or Germany. So actually there was also signs of censorship, and so theaters avoided depicting Estonians fighting against Germany in the end of the First World War. And what concerned the Second World War, then of course the event was used as an important ideological tool after the war. But I think that in the Soviet Union movies, literary works, and also, of course, war monuments were more important and more influential in ideological work than theater. But in theater, there was quite this kind of stereotypical situation that has been depicted during the second half of the 20th century, and also even nowadays, that Estonian, like usually brothers or good friends, are recruited to different armies, and they meet in the battlefield, or later on one of the men are recruited to Nazi German army and another to Soviet army, and then of course we feel the feeling of in-betweenness again, because the small nation that are torn between two superpowers. And then, of course, the third event I would like to talk more in detail is the Russian war in Ukraine, that started or continued in full scale 2 years ago. And now I think the feeling of in-betweenness lies in the country, because in Estonia we have 25% of Estonian population declare that they are Russians. So, of course, the conflict or in-betweenness lies in the local politics. It's quite ridiculous that on 24th of February, Estonia is celebrating its Independence Day. Estonia was declared independent in 1918 on 24th of February, and exactly on the same day, the full-scale invasion of Russia to Ukraine started. So we will remember this date forever, because it overlaps with our Independence Day. And of course, it was a big shock to everybody, probably also in your countries. And a lot of theater people also felt that they have to react somehow to this very political but also existential events that changed our worldview or prospects of future. And of course, maybe here it's relevant to remind the quote by Theodor Adorno, saying that to write poetry after Auschwitz is barbaric. And also the same feeling was also, I think, overwhelming, that even like we had certain conventions how to depict a war in theater, earlier wars, but it was general feeling that to depict war in Ukraine is very difficult. And here I have like two research questions or big topics, that how aesthetically depict the war, and also how to talk about war in a country where there are two opposing language groups or two opposing these political standpoints. So, of course, I don't have time to answer to these questions more thoroughly, but I give you some examples that I find most relevant, and that partly also tackle these research questions, so you can understand my response to these questions. First production in Estonian theatre that tackled the topic of war in Ukraine was titled Hui Vainie, or Fuck War, Ukraine, Letters from the Front. And the first night was less than 2 months after the full-scale invasion. And the director of this production is Julia Aug, who has quite interesting background, because she was born in Estonia and also was brought up in Estonia, finished gymnasium in border city Narva in Estonia, but obtained her education as a director and actor in St. Petersburg and in Moscow. But right after the invasion, because of her anti-war statements, she was forced to leave Russia. So already she left Russia already in March, and made one of her productions in Estonia. She had produced theater also earlier, but now this is a production about war. So basically, she is a Russian-speaking Estonian having Russian citizenship, because in Estonia it's not allowed to have a citizenship of two countries. So she had to give up Estonian citizenship, obtaining or receiving a Russian citizenship of Russian Federation. But there was a very nice little scandal also related to the title of the production. You might know that actually this slogan, Hui Vaine, was first used by Russian rock group Tattoo when they toured in United States, and when they were approached that what do they think about war in Iraq. And then they wear the T-shirts written Hui Vaine. So the production was produced by the company Vaba Lava Free Stage, and Katarina was telling about the production company. So they have like two houses, one in Tallinn, another in Narva. Narva is a border city between Estonia and Russia, and this is also at the border of European Union. And after the Second World War, the city was bombed, and also all the inhabitants of the city were evacuated and inhabited with people coming from the Soviet Union. So currently there are 5% of Estonian-speaking population living in Narva, and the rest are mostly the Russian-speaking. And when Vaba Lava advertised the production on billboards in Narva, then people in Narva felt that this is inappropriate, indecent, that there is a swearing in the public space, and were forced the theater to remove the billboards. But what Vaba Lava did, that actually they erased also the homepage of the production entirely, because they tried to not avoid this insulting local people in Narva. Of course, there are several people who have discussed the event in media, saying that how come is it that swearing is really disturbing, irritating, but war at the same time is not irritating at all. And as you probably know, that the slogan Hui Vaine has become very widespread anti-war slogan all over the Europe or all over the world. So it's not invention of this Julia Aug and the group, but it was like more this kind of general attitudes and general reactions to the events. This is a documentary theater. The title also said that Julia Aug had friends and colleagues in Ukraine, also theater people, who sent her emails. And basically what the production was about, it was the actors were reading the letters they received from the front, and also the content of the production also changed during the course of the performing. So the group was Estonian. Group consisted of Estonian-speaking actors and who were presenting the letters in Estonian language, but with subtitles in Russian, as you can see. To put it shortly, I would say that aesthetically, I think it was not very easily acceptable to Estonian audiences, because it was quite naturalistic depiction of war. There was a lot of blood. You can also see the signs of rape. In this photo, there is also dead child. Then there are also photos that were also distributed through media, so the images actually we know from media, and that were really quite intolerable images. But I understood that, that audience members who participated at these performances in April and in May, for them it was very important that the possibility to gather and share their experiences of their own and this kind of theater as a ritualistic space was very important, maybe more important than the aesthetic choices the director has made. I saw the production in September when already, of course, we were very well informed about the events in Ukraine. All the images were also familiar for us. And maybe in September we were more critical about the aesthetic choices and at least majority of Estonian audiences said that this kind of very naturalistic depictions of war are not maybe acceptable or seem to be superficial. At the same time, just this morning, Katariina told me that they performed this production also in Brussels in May 2022 and in European institutions. And there were people who said that this came as a surprise to some of them, that such events take place in Europe. So this was really shocking news this morning I received. So, but now something completely different, and this is a production that was made in collaboration with Estonian Drama Theatre, Estonian National Symphony Orchestra, and Estonian Concert. And the first night was in January 2023. And this is a production based on Shakespeare's play Macbeth. So directly the production doesn't tackle the topic of war, or especially the war in Ukraine, not at all. But of course, we all felt, all the audience members felt, that this is actually production about the war in Ukraine, because it was unimaginable to interpret differently. Of course, there are also specific signs because that help to interpret the production this way. Because Estonian National Symphony Orchestra starts all the concerts with Ukrainian anthem. So, of course, this is the first sign. And also the violence and fighting between different kings or superpowers is of course quite direct reference to war in Ukraine. But I think what was important in this production, that actually we could call this production music theater, because the text and images were mostly supporting the music. The music was composed from different symphonies by Estonian composer Lepo Sumera, and really many spectators felt that actually music had the best potential to express the feeling, the shock, the desperation we all felt in the auditorium, and only the Shakespeare's text and images just supported it. And of course, but you could be also critical about the aesthetic choice. The directors, also the most famous Estonian stage directors, Aneeli Saro, female, and Tiit Ojasoo have chosen, because on the stage there was a symphony orchestra, because they performed in a concert hall. So the actors were playing on the catwalks that were built in the auditorium. So they were performing in between of audience members. But you could see, for example, from this photo also, that all the production was quite abstract and clearly aestheticized. This is the depiction of Lady Macbeth, Helena Lottman, who might remind you Addams Family or from the famous movies. And you could see that the doll-like of appearance of her, and of course Lady Macbeth is the main source of evil in this production. Also, all dead people and killing of innocent people, especially women and children, was also very much aestheticized. So all the dead people were wrapped in the white cloth. So this also could be questionable, that should art aestheticize death, especially during this period. And the production ended with reenactments of Spanish artist Francesco Goya's drawings, and also that also reminded many war monuments, where you could also see dying or sacrificing inhabitants as victims of war. So you could be critical also here. But I can see that I'm running out of time, so really shortly saying that now something completely different. And now I want to talk about Russian theater or Russian population in Estonia. You are probably familiar that German theater group Rimini Protocol has made this series of productions titled 100% of the city. So they go to one city and they invite local people to stage based on the data of the city. So also in this production that was made in the end of last year in Narva, where, as I said, there is only 5% of Estonian-speaking inhabitants. And during the rehearsals and during the interviews, because this is also documentary theater, they also asked about that, do you support Russian invasion to Ukraine? Mostly people, the participants, inhabitants of Narva, did not want to respond to this question. Some people even left the project altogether. As also Katarina said, that the extra impulse was that in August 2022, the war monument, the Soviet tank, was removed from Narva to the museum or military museum in Tallinn, and many Narva people felt offended that their war monument was removed from the city. So anyway, like the organizers of the project, they had to also look for new participants, because they understood that actually all political questions were really not welcomed. But what people in Rimini Protocol did, that they approached the same topic from other angle. They asked that, do you support using violence for political purposes? So it was more neutral question, and as you can see that almost all participants said, not me, nie ja. Yeah? So they said that using violence for political purposes, they don't support it. And there were also some other similar questions that a little bit tackled the topic. But in the end of the performance, it's possible that spectators can ask questions from the participants of the project. And at two performances, also people from auditorium asked the participants that, do you support Russian invasion? and majority of participants, Narva people, said turn their back as a sign that they don't want to discuss it. So basically, we are not able to talk about the war issues with Russian-speaking population. And another example, this is the last one, so please be patient. This was made by Russian dissident, I could say, Timofey Kulyabin, who also escaped from Russia when war started because of his anti-war statements, and is working currently in Germany and in France, and made a production in Estonian Russian theater that was established, I think, after the Second World War, I think in 48 or something like that. Before the Second World War, we had very, Russian minority was really marginal in Estonia. And this is based on Bertolt Brecht's famous play titled The Fear and Misery of the Third Reich, hinting, of course, to the Nazi Germany, but Kulyabin changed the Reich to the empire. And you probably might know that empire in the 21st century has very direct connotations towards Russia nowadays. And the scene was surrounded by LED ribbon, so reminding a little bit like a television. So we were sitting in a theater, almost as watching television. And this was not all the play was performed, only certain scenes, and they all, of course, depict the fear and misery of the people that could be interpreted as people living in Russia, but not directly. And one of the aesthetic features Kulyabin has chosen is that is the tone or the level of the voice. So actors perform with microphones, and the voice is getting lower, or not lower, more and more quiet. So until in the last scene, when the tin coffin is brought on the stage, where actors don't speak at all. They have only this inner speech that was projected above the stage as a third titles of the inner speech. And of course, in earlier stage, we learned that in the coffin there is the husband of the wife, whose brother is working for military factory and so on. So and of course this is also quite a direct reference to the events that are taking place right now in Russia and in Ukraine. And the production, of course, hinted very clearly to the silencing minority in Estonia, or silenced majority in Russia, and also referring to the inner conflict we have in Estonia, where we are not able to talk about the war issues in our country because we don't know what are the political stances of different inhabitants in Estonia, and tackling war is definitely a sensitive, even dangerous topic nowadays. So thank you so much.